Welcome back to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm Joey Dwyer here at Bridgestone Arena. Vanderbilt didn't have a game today, but certainly has a lot to take away from today. Earlier today, we met with Jerry Stackhouse, met with Quentin Millora-Brown, met with Ezra Magnon, but I'll start with Vanderbilt's matchup for tomorrow. We found that out about an hour ago as LSU knocked off Georgia. The 14 seed beats the 11 seed and will now face Vanderbilt, the number 6 seed. And it doesn't feel like a 6 versus 14 game to me. Vanderbilt has won 8 out of its last 9, has been feeling itself, except for one night. Baton Rouge certainly did not treat Vanderbilt well as the Commodores fell to LSU a few weeks ago, and that was with Liam Robbins. Now Vanderbilt doesn't have Liam Robbins, and even when Robbins was in the lineup, it felt like LSU kind of had Vanderbilt's number. It out-rebounded Vanderbilt. It kind of overwhelmed them offensively at times, and Vanderbilt couldn't get a stop to save its life, whether that was because of offensive rebounds. LSU had 13 last time, had a lot more than that tonight against Georgia, another team that out-rebounded Vanderbilt, out-rebounded them by about 10, and even though Robbins and Dort were out for that game, LSU is certainly going to pose some challenges for Vanderbilt. It feels like a team that maybe Vanderbilt doesn't want to see, especially as a 14 seed. That's a team with a lot of athletes and a lot of physicality down low. KJ Williams and tonight Phillips was really solid as well. So Vanderbilt's going to have their hands full tomorrow, and it feels like a game that's kind of a crossroads for Vanderbilt. Obviously, it's a game that Vanderbilt's probably going to be favored in. It's a game that is going to look bad for them in the metrics if they lose, but it's a team that can certainly beat them, and Vanderbilt's got to come out ready to play tomorrow. This is not your regular SEC game. This is a game that not only is an SEC tournament game, but is probably a season decider for Vanderbilt. If Vanderbilt drops this one, you can pretty much kiss any NCAA tournament hope goodbye. You can pretty much hand Vanderbilt its NIT assignment as soon as it walks in the locker room here at Bridgestone. That's about it if Vanderbilt loses tomorrow. If not, that magic stays alive, that confidence stays alive. If Vanderbilt stays alive, most importantly, the tournament hope stays alive. Doesn't matter how you do it tomorrow, it just has to be done. And that's got to be the thing for Vanderbilt. LSU's a team that can certainly beat it, and we saw that a few months ago, or last month in Baton Rouge. No team in this league that's still playing is a team that Vanderbilt can afford to sleepwalk against. Maybe it could have against Georgia, maybe it could have against South Carolina, but can't do that tomorrow. Can't do that the rest of the way either, and Vanderbilt is going to have to stay alive tomorrow in really any way it can. That's going to have to come on the offensive end. The offense is going to have to be a little bit better than it was last time, but really the keys for Vanderbilt tomorrow are going to be defense and rebounding, and that comes with 2 news pieces that we learned earlier today. I'll start with Quentin Millora-Brown, since that's more of the long-term news. Quentin Millora-Brown announced today that he's going to return for his 6th college season. One of those he didn't play, so I guess maybe technically 5 years. Who knows with NCAA eligibility right now, but Millora-Brown today announced to the media that he will return for his 6th college season, and obviously that's big news for Vanderbilt. Whether you think that's great news or not great news, it's big news really in any aspect. And as you look at Vanderbilt's front court now, it needed some veteran presence, and it didn't have that without Millora-Brown. You have Lee Dort, you have a few nice young bigs in Carter Lang and Colin Smith. Jaquelin Roberts is more of a tweener. I guess Colin Smith's more of a tweener anyway too. Malik Dia should be back. Just a lot of guys and a lot of bodies in that front court for Vanderbilt. It didn't have a veteran presence though, and Lee Dort's going to be back next year. Maybe he'll be the bell cow. Maybe they'll get a guy in the portal to be the bell cow. But just having a veteran like Quentin Millora-Brown back is going to be huge for Vanderbilt. He only is averaging about 3.5 points a game this year, about 3.5. Is averaging a little under 4 rebounds and shooting about 50% from the field. Millora-Brown's a guy who maybe doesn't knock your socks off, hasn't played his best basketball this year. That was last year when he averaged 5 points a game. Not going to be a guy who is a world beater numbers-wise, but is certainly a guy who can make an impact on a game, and we'll give Vanderbilt solid minutes, and we'll see this week kind of how valuable maybe he can be as a 15 to 20 minute per game guy. Ideally, you want Dort to be the guy who is the bell cow, because that means he's developed his inside game. It means he's learned how to stay out of foul trouble a bit, which has also been an issue for Millora-Brown. So to me, if I'm Vanderbilt, I would love maybe if you could get a guy in the portal. They've reached out to a few recently. I think that's also newsworthy. There's a few guys who are a little undersized for the SEC, maybe some below the rim guys, but those are guys who can give you solid minutes as SEC players, and Vanderbilt's going to have an opportunity to maybe get some of those guys, but that comes with an exodus in the portal, maybe not a mass exodus, but 1 or 2 guys leaving, because Vanderbilt's over right now in terms of scholarships, and if Jordan Wright leaves, Vanderbilt's still even. So Going to need a few guys to leave in the portal for that to become a reality, but Quentin Millora-Brown returning gives Vanderbilt maybe not another dimension because the scoring maybe isn't at the level it was or at the level of William Robbins. Is going to be a lot of production to replace, and Millora-Brown returning certainly doesn't change that, but it does give them something they didn't have inside, which was veteran leadership. Shot blocking will be not seamless in terms of the transition that Vanderbilt will have this year after losing the league's Defensive Player of the Year and the league's leading shot blocker. But having Millora-Brown and having Dort as two kind of maybe defensive-minded bigs who can block shots here or there, can give you some good minutes in terms of maybe physicality. Certainly not a bad thing. I do think maybe the downside here is that it could hinder Vanderbilt in the portal a little bit, but the portal is so hard at Vanderbilt anyway. Vanderbilt, if they didn't want Millora-Brown to return, would have to really be convicted about somebody, and would really have to have a guy in mind that they think they could land. And I don't know if the staff has that right now. Obviously, they're going to try with BJ Mack from Wofford. They're going to try with some Ivy League guys, and those guys would be great options. Those would probably be their starting bigs. Millora-Brown would probably be best fit in the role that he's in this year, where he doesn't have to be relied upon as a scorer and doesn't have to be relied upon to stay out of foul trouble. That's been an issue for him at Kentucky. Was an issue for him on Saturday against Mississippi State too. Was kind of forced Jerry Stackhouse's hand to go with some of those smaller lineups, which featured Studian Jordan right at the 5. He called that bad coaching. And Millora-Brown, if he's going to be their go-to big, if him and Dort are going to be the guys who have to play center all 40 minutes, I don't know if that'd be great coaching either, just to put his guys in a position like that to where they have to stay out of foul trouble, and neither of them have proven that they can do that yet. Probably going to have to see more small ball, and maybe not as small. Maybe you can put Colin Smith at the 5 next year, or Malik D at the 5, but it's not going to be as seamless as it is right now with Liam Robbins. That's a lot of production to replace. It's probably going to have to come from 3 guys. It's going to have to come from Millora-Brown making maybe not a huge jump, but becoming more of a focal point offensively. Lee Dort being able to develop a post move or two and just polish a little bit. Maybe it's Malik Dia becoming more of a consistent contributor. The most likely outcome, I haven't heard anything on this, but the most likely outcome in my mind is maybe they go get a guy in the portal. You've seen them reach out to a few guys in the past few days. Kind of the same trend. Oh my gosh, stop. But kind of the same pattern of guys who are about 6'8", 6'9", who can score in the post, can be off the dribble back to the basket guys. And then I guess Bridgestone's just testing out all the equipment right now. But you want to see Vanderbilt kind of test out some of those guys. And the answer, though, ideally is Lee Dort. Lee Dort's a guy who at one point was a really highly touted recruit. You've seen kind of the flashes. You've seen the athleticism. You've seen that his body can hold up physically in the SEC. Now it's time for him to become a little bit more polished. Jerry Stackhouse has talked about that in the past, just him being more of a guy who can maybe get to his right hand a little bit more, or a guy who can at least be a little more composed in the post rather than throwing up some of the shots he throws up sometimes. But it's big news that Dort's back this week. Even if he's not composed in the post, even if he's not a focal point offensively, he is going to be so important against LSU and Kentucky in particular, two of the best rebounding teams in the league. Kentucky, I think, is one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country. I wouldn't be shocked if LSU was either, despite their record with the way they played tonight. And the stats aren't still up, but it feels like LSU could just completely dominate the glass without Dort in the game. If he can give them, 6 or 7 minutes with 3 or 4 rebounds, oh my gosh. If he can give them a few minutes with a few more rebounds and just make things a little bit harder on LSU tomorrow, it would be huge news for Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt's going to need that student section too. Has to be propelled somehow, and it has to bring its own energy. This place is probably not going to be filled with mostly Vanderbilt fans, despite it being in Nashville. I know the players have talked about that being a good thing that it's in Nashville, and it is. They're going to have fans here, but obviously it's not Kentucky, and going to have to bring your own energy. And Vanderbilt, to me, probably has to at least win on Friday to have any chance at the tournament. Going to need some help then. Saturday probably still going to need a little bit of help too. Sunday, obviously, control your own destiny, but that first loss to LSU was a huge issue, and if they do it again tomorrow, you pretty much kiss all tournament hope goodbye. So Vanderbilt's got to avenge that and has to prove that that this team doesn't have their number, and that it can finally knock off this team that really could kill their season with just 2 games. Despite the 8 out of 9, despite the Coach of the Year award, despite Liam Robbins winning all those awards, Vanderbilt's season could end in 2 games. And really scary to think about that, but that's college basketball, and that's what could happen tomorrow. Vanderbilt's at a crossroads. The good news is, though, Vanderbilt's probably been best with their back against the wall at a crossroads. Feels like Vanderbilt finally, well, maybe not finally, but feels like Vanderbilt's back in that spot. And it's scary on one hand, but Vanderbilt's also played really good basketball in that situation. When Liam Robbins goes down, you think it's probably over. When Vanderbilt loses to Alabama, you think it's probably over, but it's never folded, and we're still talking about meaningful basketball in March. And I think that's the biggest takeaway right now is meaningful basketball in March. It matters if Lee Dort plays this week, and that's a guy who maybe isn't Vanderbilt's best player, but is a guy who's impactful and impactful enough to make an impact in big games like this. And the fact that we have people caring about injury news at this point in the season is a step for Vanderbilt. It's time for them to take that next step, though, and that can come this week, or that can be delayed until maybe next season, maybe the year after that. A lot on the line for Vanderbilt in these next 2 games, particularly tomorrow. And going to be exciting to see it on this court in a few minutes or in a few hours. Hopefully the buzzers won't be sounding as much after the game tomorrow. But I appreciate you guys watching. Great day here at the SEC tournament. Going to be even better to see Vanderbilt play tomorrow and actually be able to do a little bit of work. So thank you guys for watching. God bless. Peace.